I think you don't need me to tell you about the sad news about the passing of Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball, suddenly taken away from us. The man who taught me that, you know what, in a way, it's okay to let your imagination run wild. Just go with the flow. His methodology of just writing a fantastical story such as Dragon Ball on a chapter by chapter basis gave me the inspiration to write the stories that Hav and I have produced on this channel, the life that it has spurred on today. The ideas of what would happen if Raditz turned good, or the idea of Frieza turning good, and I think you can sense a pattern here. But these stories that we have formulated, a mixture of written stories that we have planned, but for the most part, they are improvised. And throughout my journey of becoming a storyteller, I look back to Akira Toriyama and what he means to me in terms of realizing that, hey, your mind is a pretty great thing. Just go along with it. See where it goes. Because this story, Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, for the most part, was just written as Akira Toriyama felt it. How he wished the story to evolve at the end of writing the next chapter. It was that childhood wonderment that I admired. Instead of planning things out weeks or months in advance in intricate detail, as is de rigueur in most narrative fields, Toriyama was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to see how I feel at the end of this chapter and then take it from there. Let my imagination just dictate what happens with Son Goku, push the boundaries, and realize something that I think is really important and a real evolution in storytelling and a fusion of storytelling genre. The idea that an action comedy could work. An idea where comedy is at the forefront and true to Toriyama's background, but at the same time is so steeped in martial arts lore that at the flick of a switch, the idea that Goku can be this sweet, innocent country bumpkin and then become a fierce martial artist at the drop of a hat is remarkable. The ability to switch on a dime like that is something I think is amazing. And just the authenticity in the man, that he wasn't one about fame or glitz or glamour or riding off on the coattails. He just wanted to tell a story. As far as he was concerned, after he'd finished Dr. Slump, he could have retired there and then. As somebody in his late 20s, early 30s, he didn't have to make Dragon Ball, but he liked the challenge. And throughout all of the editorial meddling throughout all of his life, he had a dream. He had passion. He had a goal. He wanted to prove people wrong, that his ideas could work, that he would be able to take the blows, roll with the punches, and just experiment and just enjoy himself, provide himself a story where it's something that has transcended boundaries, countries, and at one point created a diplomatic incident between Mexico and Japan. That's the power of Dragon Ball. In that context, Dragon Ball Super, about the idea about people watching it on big screens, tens of thousands of people without permission. But it was a show that was created by one man. One man was able to dictate something like that. That is truly remarkable. The idea that this one person was able to improvise and create this magical world, mystical adventure even, and make it last for so long, now coming up to 40 years. Dragon Ball Daima is the magnum opus. It's the culmination in Dragon Ball, where it is, reintroducing us to Kid Goku, not for the sake of doing it because they ran out of ideas, but to re-ingratiate people with people that might not have been familiar with the original Dragon Ball series, reinvent the classic Dragon Ball story for the modern age, with fantastic animation and patience. This has been lovingly crafted, this series, and Toriyama, you get the feeling that he's not been this excited since, well, Resurrection F. It takes a lot to get Toriyama excited. And you felt like in the last few years, he was loving the journey about where Dragon Ball Super went. He could recreate things that he had once just tossed aside or wrote in one chapter and then moved on to the next one. He, in a way, looked back at his improvisational skills and wanted to refine them. It was almost just like, that was a really cool time. And he looks back on it with pride, as he should. Dragon Ball is one of those things that, no matter where you are in the world, is treasured, cherished, loved. No matter where you come from, no matter what you do, no matter what you identify as or how you live your life, Dragon Ball is special. It's all things to all people. For me, it's the idea that comedy and action can work together in harmony. It's the idea of not taking yourself too seriously when you don't have to. The idea that you can just have a story where the characters grow up. I never saw that before, ever. It was my proper introduction to anime when I was about 13 or so. Sure, I'd seen some anime like Samurai Pizza Cats and Sailor Moon, but they were just traditional episodic adventures. Whereas with Dragon Ball, that was something different. That was something truly groundbreaking for me. At the age of 13, I saw characters grow up almost in real time. I saw Gohan, when I was relatively young, grow up into becoming a young man. And now, where he is right now, as somebody who's in his late 20s, I can identify to Gohan in a way that I never thought possible back when I was younger. And when you look back at the original stories, when you were introduced to them as a child or a teenager, as a, well, I'm coming up to a middle-aged man, and now with a child myself, you just feel like there's so many new things that you can just discover. Whether or not Toriyama intended it to be so, that remains to be seen, but interpretations are so powerful. There's so much meaning that you can go back and watch Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z with a different pair of eyes. It never gets old. That excitement. I remember showing Dragon Ball Z to my nephews and they were hooked. They enjoyed it in their own special way, and just getting to watch them discover the world of Akira Toriyama and what it could mean for them is something that I cherish a lot. And now we're getting to see some more of the obscure stuff that Toriyama produced, get the limelight that it deserves. For example, Soundland. I'm pleased that that has some sort of coverage now. It's got a special. It's got a video game coming out. Soundland, for the longest time, was just this little thing that Toriyama created, 14 chapters long, not very long. But when you go back to look at it, you can tell that this was something Toriyama was truly proud of. And now it's getting the attention that it deserves. That's remarkable. And now, hopefully, more of his stuff, more of his content can be seen across the planet. So not just Dragon Ball, but people can realize how extremely talented Akira Toriyama is. Not just with creating Super Saiyans and power levels and martial arts comedy or subversive content. No, you can see an entire gamut of different things that at the same time still feel like a Toriyama production. You're never alone with a Toriyama story. It's comforting. It's escapism. It's something that you can just forget about the world and just get yourself immersed in. Even now, you can just go back and watch Dragon Ball, go watch Dragon Ball Z, or even read the manga and get yourself lost. Lost in that adventure, that tiniest little reference, just something, a blink and you'll miss it in popular culture. Just a little thing, a pose, a word, a phrase, a look, or something like that. Just a little reference just shows you in mainstream media, there are people out there that grew up with Dragon Ball. Even if it's something so discreet that the most hardcore of fan would see it, but it might pass people by, or it might trigger something that they go, I've seen that somewhere before. And you look back to Dragon Ball. It's just so iconic. It has seeped into popular culture in a way that it's different. It's more subtle. Yet Toriyama wasn't a subtle person, and yet was. He didn't seek fame or glory or attention. He just wanted to tell a story and get on with his life, with his family, and just cherish that moment. I mean, the Ginyu Force. I mean, come on. The Ginyu Force was there as a little nod to his children. They loved superheroes. They loved Super Sentai. And he was like, I'm going to create my own for my children. And you can tell the familial side of it. And with all of these new photos being released of him spending time with his kids, it's amazing. It's so wonderful that, sure, he may have been an aloof person. He shied himself away from publicity. He had people working for him and doing stuff on his behalf. But in the background, this was a man who didn't want to go out to parties, wine and dine with Japan's finest. He just wanted to be in his own space where he was comfortable. He could create whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted, and he was with his family. He didn't shy away. And in a way, you can feel like he's trying to teach Gohan a lesson in the latest series that, hey, be there for your kids. They grow up, they leave. But if you just spend that important time with them when they're younger and just be aware about what they're doing, it's just that kind of attention. That's what I get from Toriyama. And that's why it's a sad day across the world. But in a way, it needn't be. Dragon Ball will live on. And that's good. And I hope you're doing okay out there, because this is heavy news. This was something that we didn't expect. Not right now, or not even in several decades or something. But it's happened, and we wish it hadn't happened. But Akira Toriyama, wherever you are, just, relax. You can get your rest now.